Jumbo, welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us. We're on Black Power Media Reloaded this evening. My name is Inez Barron, and I'm here as co-host with my husband, Charles Barron, the bold, the outspoken, the indomitable, the one, the only, the unbought, the unbossed.
And as I always say, the humble servant. Honored to be on with my wife of 43 years, the stunningly beautiful, the intellectually brilliant Inez Barron.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Operation Power, a voice for Black radical change and revolutionary change. We're here each week, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're pleased to be a part of this program, this platform, offering so many other programs that are thinking programs, that are critical programs, that are getting our people to know that we have the power, the ability, and the ideas to make a change. We've got an exciting program for you this evening. It's called Black Scare, Red Scare. The charges, the attack on the Uhuru 3 and Marco Rubio's conspiracy report. We see a connection there. They came for us first, the Uhuru 3, but we see that there's a manifestation of what this government plans for us, and we've got to let people know, and we've got to get people involved and get people organizing. So we're going to have our guest, Brother Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party. He's going to be joining us shortly, and we're excited.
Yes, we are.
So we want you to get someone else to tune into this program and to be a part of this exchange that we're going to be having this evening. Once again, you are listening to Speaking Truth to Power, and we're so glad that you're here, and we want to get started. We believe that we should start with a libation. We have so many ancestors who have gone before us, who've paved the way, who've got us to this point, who've passed the torch to us, who made innumerable sacrifices, gave their lives in many instances. And we want to take this time to have a libation to honor them. And we're going to ask our engineer, Kiwu Gichuru, if he would offer the video libation at this time.
Without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour a libation too to those ancestors, because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe, ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you so much. We believe it's important that we take time to note that we understand sacrifices of our ancestors.
Yes.
And we know that you have ancestors in your family as well who've made contributions, not just to your family, but to the community and to those organizations. So we call them and include them in this honor. Well, once again, this is Operation Power, and we have a brief video that's going to give you a little snippet of who we are and some of the things that we've been able to accomplish in the areas that we have worked in. Here in East New York section of Brooklyn, Operation Power.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation Power was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
In 1990,
That's Operation Power. And what we say each and every week, power, as the chairman says, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, power is the great equalizer. And that's what we did here in East New York. We challenged the Democratic Party machine in the electoral arena. And don't get us wrong, we know we can't vote our way to freedom. We ain't talking about that. But we can contest, challenge them. And we did that, and we wiped out the most powerful Democratic club in New York City, and that is the Kings County Democratic Organization of Brooklyn. It is the most powerful across the country, and they have a club in each one of our communities. The Black and Latino communities are really domestic colonies of a neo-colonial or colonial capitalist system. So what we did, we wiped them out. We beat them for 21 years, 14 years in the city council, 8 years in the city council, 7 years in the state assembly, 5 years in the state assembly. And by wiping them out, we were able to put Black radical politics on the map in New York City, and not only raise the question of revolution and radical systemic change, because you see, we got to get beyond organizing around symptoms. And yes, I'm going to keep marching and demonstrating, but we have to organize for power, organize for radical, root, systemic, revolutionary change as we organize around issues. As a matter of fact, we're going to spread this across the country, and we're going to be working with, and we're proud to say we were some of the founding organizers and visitors and presenters at the first Black Radical Electoral School of the Black is Back Coalition under the leadership of Brother Yeshitela, Chairman Yeshitela. So we're just happy to have him on. That's why I'm getting so excited to can't wait to get him talking. But that's Operation Power, and we're going to spread that across the country. Inez?
Yes, we just want to call your attention to several books that we want to bring to your attention, which are available at Barnes & Noble's online. The first is written by Charles Barron, and it is entitled Speaking Truth to Power. It's a collection of essays and articles that have been written over a period of time, and they're there for you to peruse to see what it is that we have the ability to do to use that power in our community. The second book is called It's Not You, It's Capitalism, Why It's Time to Break Up. And that book is written by our own dear Imani Malika Jabali. She's the author of It's Not You, It's Capitalism, Why It's Time to Break Up and How to Move On. The next three books are novels. The first one is called Black Rising. It is written by Kevin Barron, and it is a novel. It's a page turner, and you will thoroughly enjoy it. Once you start, you won't stop. The second book in the series is called Black Rising Home and Abroad, also by Kevin Barron. It's the second in the trilogy. And the last one is called The Threat, and it continues the theme of the first two books. So these books are all available online through Barnes & Noble, and we do encourage you to get your copy.
Now we're going to get into our program. The chairman is here. The chairman is here. You saw Muhammad Ali's film. The champ is here. The champ is here. We saying the chairman is here. The chairman is here. We're so honored to have him.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you so very much for allowing me to participate in this really crucial venue coming from Operation Power. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm also extremely happy that you do engage in the electoral process, and that you have informed us in many instances how best to do this. You mentioned that with the Black is Back Coalition, we've initiated the electoral campaign school that we do annually. And I'm saying this because I know that there has been a time when the Black liberation movement in this country was really skeptical. I would say more than skeptical. I would say generally opposed to engaging in the electoral arena. And part of this, I think, was some kind of misguided assumption that we were supposed to be able, that it was a substitute for achieving revolutionary objectives. And our view, and I'm so happy to see that it's a shared view, is that it's not a substitute, it's a stair step. It's something that we can use to achieve revolutionary objectives. It's not the revolution, but is a part of the process of making the revolution. It gives us access that we would never have otherwise in terms of to millions of our people, most of whom are engaged in political work, political life through the Democratic Party. And most of them are not part of the Uhuru movement. They're not part of Operation Power. They are part of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And that's because at this point, up to now, people have greater confidence in the Democratic Party than in our own capacity. And that's what we have to fight to regain. So we need to do that. We cannot abandon this critical arena, not on purpose, not voluntarily. I mean, if you remember, they've done everything to keep us out of this arena. They've shot us, bombed us, killed our leaders, done all those things to keep us from being able to access that so people could hear our ideas. And people could have an opportunity to vote on our ideas. And the fact that it's because it's the electoral process that they set up for themselves, it has an element of legitimacy in the minds of of the system itself, and it has an element of legitimacy in the minds of many African people. So I just think it's an extraordinarily important thing for us to take on, and you've been a real champion in that. And I want to say, comrades, I know I'm talking a lot, but on this issue, because what happened was we won the right to voting, the Voting Rights Act in 1965, and which is the same year they killed Malcolm X, which is the same year that Malcolm X was brought by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee into Selma, Alabama, to unite our movement coming from anti-colonial politic of Malcolm X and the electoral politic that was being promoted by Martin Luther King, etc. King was in prison, in jail at the time, so Malcolm met with Coretta Scott King. And I think it was something like 14 or 17 days after that meeting, they killed Malcolm. This is what they thought about bringing the revolutionary politic to the masses of people, using the electoral process to do that. So they killed Malcolm X, and they wiped out. Subsequent to that, they hit the Black Panther Party. 1969, 68, they killed King. 69, they killed Fred Hampton. The 60s was an array of assassinations and murder of our people to push us out of the electoral process, and not just here, but in Africa and various other places.
That's right.
You saw counter-revolutionary activity because there was a presumption that we had one democratic right to participate. Yet they killed Lumumba, they overthrew Nkrumah, they were wiping out anything. And so this was what we had to deal with. So now what we have is the only thing that people got to vote for is the Democratic Party. They don't have the what Malcolm was putting forth in terms of Black nationalist program. Remember that?
That's right.
What is that? He said it's that Black people should control the politic in our own community, control the economy in our own community, should control the culture of our own community. This is what he was bringing to the civil rights movement. This is what when I say civil rights in this sense, I'm talking about electoral politics. That's what you have done. And that's what makes you such a significant force, because you did that. And you did it, you didn't have access to all of the organizational formations and stuff like that was available. In fact, you didn't have access in part because much of the so-called Black nationalist or Black liberation movement had run away from electoral politics. And so that was an arena that was abandoned, generally speaking. Well, it was shot out, but you were there. And it was great work that you've done. You are the ones who brought Mugabe. You are the ones who put reparations in New York. You are the ones who were raising all these revolutionary questions and issues, etc. So they failed in their attempt to push us out, killing Malcolm, killing King, etc. And you have exemplified what can be done, what should be done using the electoral process.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman. And you know what? Since this is our show, we could take a minute more to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because you know what was interesting? We're getting feedback.
Yeah, Chairman, if you could check on your end, maybe there are multiple
devices.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Perhaps there are. I'm using my phone and okay, let's see. We're gonna get this right.
Just mute one of them. You should be okay.
Get this right. Let's see what we got here. How is this? Is this better?
Yep, that's
seem to be better.
That's
Yes,
it. Yeah,
yes.
But I can't hear you now. So
let's see. Well, I'd rather have the echo when you hear us.
Let's try and proceed. I'm sorry that I'm such a neophyte when it comes to utilizing these devices and what have you.
Put back the echo.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go with that rather than you not hearing it.
We'll make it better. We'll find a way. Somebody smart's gonna probably come in here. Maybe a 5-year-old child.
What I was gonna say is we take another minute to explore this electoral thing. I remember when the stuff broke in Ferguson. I knew after the dust cleared, that
Can you hear
Ferguson
us?
was going. Yes, you can. Ferguson was going to change electorally. So the brothers and sisters that tore the place up, they're the reasons why the UN was talking about Ferguson. They're the reason why every channel was talking about Sir Ferguson, not because anybody that came there, but it's because they hit the streets, they tore stuff up. And for that, they were on CNN every night, MSNBC, the United Nations responded. And I knew when it dust cleared, they had one black council member out of 6 or 7. They had 2 or 3 police officers out of 50 something. They were getting a bunch of traffic tickets, and they had 1 or no people on the school board. So people were calling me up and saying, "Are you going to come to the demos?" I said, "No, y'all got that. I want to come in and show y'all how to get the seats after the dust clears, because the Negroes are going to put on their shirts and ties, and you're going to have a bunch of neo-colonial black puppets in the city council." Sure enough, you got 2, 3 city council members, not us. You got more on the school board, not us. So that's why we need to do this electoral thing. Fidel Castro ran for office. He ran for the state legislature, and Batista canceled the election, so they had to go into the hills. The Hamas used to blow up stuff around every election. They decided, no, we're going to run for office. They were legitimately elected by the Palestinian people, and American imperialism and Israel colonialism had a fit. All the African movement, even Kwame Nkrumah, they ran after they came out the armed struggle. They ran for office. Lumumba ran for office, and so did not Batista, the Sandinistas. Remember Daniel Ortega? They came out after guerrilla warfare. They ran for office. So we got to challenge this state power. And you, Omali Yeshitela, who I believe firmly is the leading revolutionary theorist and practitioner of the 21st century, there could not be a better place to have electoral involvement than around your movement, Inez.
Well, Chairman, just want to give people some background about who you are. You've been in the struggle going back to the days of when the 60s, and talking about SNCC. You have been involved in always talking about reparations. And we want you to talk to us about the Uhuru 3, you, Jesse Neville, and Penny Hess, who you are, and what it is that the charges were brought, of which you were acquitted, found not guilty, and where that has come to now. So give us a background about that, the raid that occurred in February, I think it was 2022. Talk about that and bring us up to date on where we are.
Yeah, the raid happened. I have to unmute.
We hear you.
You got me? Okay. Yeah, the raid occurred on July 29, 2022. And they raided 7 of our offices and homes in 2 different states, cities and states, St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Petersburg, Florida. And they claimed that they did it because they finally said after 9 months that we were charged with being Russian agents. We were employees of Russia. And this is really important because they evidence that they saw, that they said supported the claim that we were Russian agents, is the work that we do around reparations, that we call for reparations. They said that was the Russians who came up with that. They said it was the Russians who came up with the thing that we were demanding the United Nations investigate the United States for committing genocide against African people in this country. They said the Russians came up with that. And the fact is, I went to Moscow 2 times in 2015, and they said I became a Russian agent when I did that. And of course, I went to Moscow in 2015 twice because my objective then, and continues to be, to deny this colonial power to isolate the struggle of Black people. We've had to fight on our own. Inside this country, there's been very little support to the struggle of African people. I don't mean that people didn't support civil rights, because that doesn't challenge the actual system itself. But the Black Revolution, they were never there. They weren't there for the Black Panther Party. I mean, the only time you saw the white left show up for the Black Panther Party is when the Black Panther Party in 1972, after suffering so many attacks and assassinations and murder and what have you, initiated a call for a national conference against fascism. And at that time in Oakland, California, had 9,000 people showed up at that meeting, and most of them were white. And because when you say fascism, you're talking about the possibility of something happening to white people. They see themselves afraid. They're afraid of Trump. So they talk about fascism, but nobody was talking about colonialism. We were. And the Black Liberation Movement was talking about colonialism. So, you know, it's a very extremely important question that we were bringing to our people, which was fundamental, because we had been shut down with the assassinations of very critical people who had come to anti-colonial conclusions. So, you know, so I just wanted to say that, and I just think it's extremely important that people recognize that what we are about is the liberation of our people. That's it.
That's it.
That's the whole question. And this whole thing about them having to say that we work for the Russians is because to say otherwise, they say there's something legitimate about the claims we make about the treatment of Black people in this country. To deny that the claims we make about Black people has any legitimacy about our exploitation, about our oppression. They say any criticism we make of the treatment of Black people in this country is coming from some white people who told us stupid Black people. And this is a thing that they really ran in 1950s. They had this whole campaign about these inept and intellectually deprived Black people over Africa and other places, where these white communists would come in and trick us to make us want to be opposed to colonialism and things like that. It's necessary, because the colonizer claims in every instance that they're there to help us. And so for us to say that this is not what we want, it means that somebody else must be telling us what we want, and that because we don't have the agency on our own to make those kinds of statements. So we went to trial, and they charged us with being Russian agents of Russia, not unregistered Russian agents, which was punishable by 10-year prison sentence and up to $250,000 fine. Then they charged us with being unregistered, with being unregistered conspirators to be Russian agents, which was punishable by 5 years and $250,000 fine. So they lost the jury, despite the fact that they kicked off the only African who was on that jury. They lost the foundational charge. The people had to unite with us that we were not working for Russians, we were working for Black people. So that one we won, and then they convicted us for conspiring to not register to work as Russian agents. So that was the conviction. And just the other day, the 22nd of this month, we were in Atlanta, Georgia, because we appealed that conviction. And so we were there in Atlanta, Georgia, to a federal court appealing the conviction, and it was an extremely interesting kind of situation, because in the first place, usually the courts don't accept most appeals. One. Secondly, of the appeals they do accept, less than a quarter of them have allowed oral arguments. They gave us oral arguments. So that was something that we found positive. We said, okay, they have something they want to resolve in this court, and therefore they're allowing this. So we went there. And then on the day before, on the 21st, we were in Atlanta. It was at the School of Law there in Atlanta, and Ward Churchill was there. You may know Ward, and other really important forces, and all of our brilliant lawyers were there. the place was packed. Africans and others came from everywhere and we participated, fill up that room, and what was really important was because 4 years later, the people are still there. 4 years later, the thing was packed, right? And so, we, talked about the case and rallied people. And then the next day we went to the court. When we got to the court, the line to get in the court was a block long. And you saw that these lawyers were coming up and they were saying, what in the hell is going on? We've never seen a situation with this many. What's going on, etc. So we went into the courtroom, and they had an overflow room, and then there were too many of us for the overflow room as well. And so, which was really important, because the court needs to know that same people who were there then recognized the folly, the fallacy of what was happening now. And but we were really disturbed. Because Leonard Goodman, who was one of the brilliant lawyers, and he's the one who actually wrote the appeal, as he had written most of the documents, dismissals, and things like that. And so he was making his argument. We only have 15 minutes, 15 minutes for our argument, and then the court and the prosecution had 15 minutes. So they began interrupting Leonard right away, which is not necessarily in and of itself bad, but everything they did when they interrupted him, they fought to limit this discussion not to anything that happened, because they wanted to unite with the state, who said that the charges they made against us were content neutral. It didn't matter. They didn't attack us because of what we said. They attacked us because the Russians told us to say it. They attacked us because we were working for the Russians. So they said it's content neutral. And so every time Leonard was trying to talk, they would push back with that. All of the three judges were doing this. The three panel judges, the three-judge panel was doing this. And so that was disconcerting. And then finally, when the prosecutor was asked by the judges, how do you reconcile the fact that they were found not guilty on the foundational charge, but guilty on the other charge? And that's where you saw the prosecution, stumble, couldn't really give a meaningful kind of explanation at all for that. So that offered me, possibility that the court, may have heard something, may be willing to have some kind of discussion, especially since the prosecution couldn't deal with it. But the other thing that was happening is, you may know that Black Power 96, our radio show station in St. Petersburg, Florida, had been denied up to $90,000 in COVID funds, COVID-related funds. And they were denied these funds based on their relationship to the Uhuru movement, their relationship to the African People's Socialist Party. And so we appealed that case. They appealed that case, the station did. And then when they appealed the case, the court there refused to hear the case. They said, we're not hearing the case. They were dismissing, and then we appealed that. Then that went to Jacksonville for, you may remember some of that. We went to Jacksonville to argue that case. And now, just a couple of days ago, we hear from the appellate court there, they've come back. One of the judges in the appellate court panel in this case was a judge in the case that we just came out of.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
And so what happened was, we kicked their asses in that. And the appellate court there united that there was racial discrimination associated with what had happened to us. There was an attack on First Amendment rights that they utilized against us, and some other related kind of things, which was really important. Now we didn't get the $90,000 yet, but there was precedent-setting ruling that came from that court. It has to go back to the other court now. And this court demolished the arguments that was coming from the people who attacked us. I mean, they had recordings that where this guy was saying, one of the people on the county commission was saying that that want to find out if it has anything to do with this Africa thing, and then we're going to crush it. I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to wipe it out. And this kind of stuff was what they were talking about. So we went there and we won that. We won that and so that's important victory that we just had, and it has implications for, I believe, for the case that we just came out of, that we're just dealing with in terms of the otherwise. One of the same judges that was there in Atlanta was in this case as well. So that's some of where we are now. Yeah.
Well, for those people who don't know, this is a case with international reach. People all across the nation and across the world are looking at this case. And if you want to get more background about who our special guest is, you can read his book, An Uneasy Equilibrium. And if you want to get concrete information about what he's done, you can talk to the people in St. Louis, and they can tell you how this organization has done rehab of housing and made it affordable to the people who live in that community. He has bakeries. He's got a basketball court. He's got all kinds of involvement and elevating our people and bringing the message to our people, concrete things that we can look at. So, the Russians had nothing to do with any of that. And we want you to be clear about that. And Charles.
Yeah, and see, you got to ask yourself, why are you attacking a brother like this who has a doula program trying to help our people? Why would you attack somebody who said, I just want to make sure that our people are eating so they have gardens? Why would you attack somebody who said, when the disaster came, when a tornado came, it wasn't the government that bailed out the Black community. It was the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, went and bailed out our community and put some things back together. So the question is, why would a government who's not doing a damn thing for us would now try to stop somebody who's trying to do just a little something for us? And this is why this movement is so important. This is why we call it the trial of the century, because this victory, and we can segue into this, Marco Rubio's report, but this victory here is powerful and significant because it did a couple of things. And I heard you say this one time, Chairman, that this attack on free speech is an attack on you, white folk, because of free speech happened, 1791, 1741, whenever the amendment was for free speech. It wasn't for us because we were enslaved. So we couldn't not only not speak, we couldn't even live in your communities. So you may watch them take care of us in the morning, but they'll be coming after you in the afternoon. So now Marco Rubio, he had a conference on July 16th. Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State. He's a child of Cuban immigrants. Matter of fact, they migrated to Miami before Castro came into power. So he can't say Castro drove him into Miami. But Marco Rubio got 60 representatives from mostly white nations and a few Latino nations. Got them together, and almost identically what is happening to the Uhuru movement, he's now trying to say, anybody that supports Cuba is an agent for the Cuban government. So they listed 43 people. And matter of fact, I was saying, Marco, you missed the mark because there's more than 43. You're going to have to list hundreds of thousands of people if you think saying that we want them off the terrorist list and we want the blockade stopped, and we want your economic isolation, which leads to economic terrorism, to cease. If you think that is being an agent for Cuba, then you got to arrest the 49 members of my city council who supported a resolution to take Cuba off the terrorist list. So then all 49 have to be arrested. Thousands have to be arrested, but it is the Uhuru movement that set the precedence of how they can be beaten, and people no longer have to be afraid. They should still visit Cuba. They should still support Cuba. So, Chairman, if you can talk a little about that Rubio report and calling it left-wing terrorism. By the way, all of the statistics, all of the data shows that there's more right-wing terrorism in America than there is any kind of so-called left-wing terrorism. And we call this the Black Scare, Red Scare. And they did it with Paul Robeson and the McCarthy era, talking about we're going to stop communism. Trump can't even spell communism. None of them even know what it means. And they didn't succeed in convincing people socialism was bad. So now they have to say they're communists. But Chairman?
First of all, let me just say, I'm still muted, am I?
No, we hear you.
Okay. Let me just say that we just heard from a conference that was held in the Philippines. And this was a conference by the International Association of Democratic Lawyers. And one of the lawyers is a man whose name is Jun Sakamoto, who is from Japan. He's with the International Lawyers International Solidarity Association. And he was talking about the Uhuru 3. And as part of what's happening globally in terms of attacks being made on forces who are pushing for democracy and democratic rights, etc. And I just think that's really important to see that, the different arenas where this is penetrated. And I think that also it is further evidence of something that you've said during this process, or certainly inferred, is that we have to fight back. We cannot be cowed into not standing up. We cannot be saying, let them say you're a communist or you are socialist. If you stand for the liberation of people, if you demand the end of the murder of the people of Cuba and Iran and Afghanistan and all these various places, Zimbabwe, all these places, you can't get away with that. So I think it's extremely important that we keep our heads up and that we take a decent stance and not retreat. Because one of the things, when I mentioned how the judge was really pushing hard, the panel of judges, to our lawyers and Goodman, who was presenting. And the thing that I really appreciated, Goodman did not take one step backwards. He didn't take one step backwards. When they said, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try this? He said, nope, this is the case. And they tried to bully him, and judges can do that because especially lawyers who you want to come before judges again. Right. And so you have to kiss their ring, this kind of stuff. And so, but he was very powerful. And we can't do that because you don't get those rights back. If they take away your right to talk, you don't get it back. You understand? So we have to stand up. Now, Rubio, and this attack that he's made, characterizing, Cuba as the headquarters of all the terrorism and struggles against the people, Cuba, who they're starving to death, little tiny Cuba, this small island that stood up to them. And Rubio, I'm sure he hasn't forgotten what happened with the Bay of Pigs and how the Cubans, rose up and fought that invasion and even a more recent invasion. So Rubio they're part of the same process of needing to create a narrative that any struggle for rights, for democracy on an international level is something that has this devious thing from the Cubans. Cubans have now got agents throughout our communities and what have you. When you hear somebody standing up, you don't have to stand up for Cuba. When you're standing up against what the U.S. is doing to African people, when you stand up against what the U.S. is doing to the indigenous people, people want to forget, and we will not allow them to forget, the concentration camps that exist in this country, and there are several. And one of the most significant and outstanding concentration camps, they call them Indian reservations. But they also call them housing projects. They call them prisons and things like that. These are concentration camps. and they don't want this discussion to happen. So from their perspective, Cubans told me to say this. So I'm some kind of Cuban agent. This is what we hear, and especially if you ever go to Cuba, if you ever participate in some of the brigades that go to Cuba, that's what you're doing. And my understanding, because we've opened up a Latin America front from the Uhuru, hands-off Uhuru movement. We are working in Ecuador. We are connected to comrades in Venezuela right now as a part of this process. We are connected to comrades who are tightly involved in the Cuba work and work throughout Latin America, because this is the kind of movement that we have to have. In fact, part of what we are involved in doing is building an international human rights organization, so that we don't have to call a special meeting if Iran is under attack, or if we are under attack here, et cetera, that the people who are part of this human rights organization, based on the principles that we establish for ourselves, recognize that we have a responsibility to respond to that. Like in Japan, where we have such an organization as what we just addressed, they have a responsibility to this, when we bring them into this process. They have a responsibility at the United Nations and other places like that. So Rubio, Trump, had him right. Little, what do they call him? Little what? Yeah, little Mario. Yeah, and I don't know if these persons have had an original thought in their, ever, and it's totally unoriginal. And the wars they're making, like right now, for example, they would liquidate the whole history. They want to liquidate the history. For example, they say that Iran has been exporting terrorism, that there's been repressive and terrorism for 47 years. Where did they start that 47 years at? Do you know? It started when the Iranians overthrew the Shah of Iran that was put in power by the United States. Where they put also the CIA created this entity called SAVAK, which was the intelligence organization that killed literally thousands of people, and where the U.S. was running the country from the embassy that they characterized. They've turned into a museum now. They call it the nest of spies, and they show you all the stuff that the United States had done, from that embassy and what have you. So this is the real deal, and this is the kind of stuff we're going to have to keep before the people. Not just dismissing what Rubio said, but promoting what we know to be the case, what we know to be the truth, and putting forth what the conditions of Africans, conditions of the indigenous people and all the oppressed peoples around the world, putting that forth, and then trying to bring all of us into organization, because that's the issue. That's the reason they talk about Cuba, because there's an element of organization associated with the brigades. All of us, we have to bring this all into organization, because otherwise we're just complaining as different entities, separate entities without a common agenda, a common goal. We have a common goal. We want to eradicate colonialism and the colonial mode of production from the face of the planet Earth. That's what our objective is, and that's the thing that we have to promote and win masses of people to understand. Our people, most people, you don't understand colonialism. I mean, when they see stuff happening and we say that's colonialism, they say, yeah, they got it. It doesn't take any long lectures and stuff like that. They just been hearing racism, all of this stuff. But once we begin this discussion, and what you see this, comrade, you remember a time when we were the only ones who were talking about colonialism. Now, you can't open up a newspaper, the white man is talking about colonialism. They are talking about settler colonialism, etc. And you got these, let me just finally, I want to say this, to show the connectedness of everything we're talking about. As you know, August 29th is the anniversary of the Durban World Conference Against Racism. And people went there from all around the world. We were there. We've organized our first organization, Uhuru Movement organization in South Africa while there. Chimaringa did that. So we have this situation, and the Durban Declaration and the Durban Plan of Action. I'm really happy to say that December 12th is pushing for everybody to hold up Durban. and this is a critical thing. I'm convinced it's critical. I'm convinced that what happened in Durban was critical, so critical that in a few days after Durban, somebody blew up the damn World Towers to keep people from talking about the significance of Durban. Durban was fundamental because it said this is the foundational issue contradiction that's facing the whole world. And the whole world united with that except the United States and Israel. The whole world did that. And the whole world said that African people and colonized people would do reparations. The whole world said that except for the United States. And that put us really in a forward place in terms of struggling for our own interests. And then, of course, what we've seen subsequent to that, a precursor, Durban was a precursor to the United Nations just declaring that slavery was the worst crime that ever committed. But 19 years before Durban in your Brooklyn, 19 years before the Durban conference in your Brooklyn, the African People's Socialist Party held a national conference, international conference, what was it? International Tribunal on reparations for Black people in this United States. 19 years before that.
Right.
And so this has been the trajectory. And this is where they've been shooting and cutting and bombing and doing everything they can to keep off the agenda, because this is the critical question, the struggle and oppression, exploitation of African people here and around the world. That's the Achilles heel of the entire social system, and that's what we have to promote. So they don't talk to me about being about Antifa. Don't talk to me about being a communist. I'm a Black man who's been oppressed by white power. You stole every damn thing we got, and we're coming back to get what we got. This is what the struggle is about. So Durban, pay reparations. We want reparations, and we can do this in the communities. And that's the other thing, comment, Charles. We want to take power wherever it's located. We want to take the school boards. We want to take wherever that arena is, where the votes are. What do you call this place where they count the votes? You know, we want to be in those places. We want every precinct that can be. We want to get them all, and that's where the power is located. And so if you don't see us in big demonstrations, doing this and doing that, believe me, we work in the precincts. That's how we should be doing. We're going to our people. That's where the source of the power is. And so anyway, and we're going to do something on Durban with the Durban thing. And the anniversary on this August 29th is the same date of the coalition, the Black is Back Coalition annual national conference is happening on that date. And it's going to be headquartered here in St. Louis. It's going to surround Durban. Everything is going to revolve around Durban. We're going to be promoting Durban actions in South Africa, Durban actions in Namibia, Durban actions wherever the places that we are located around the world and here. Because the Black question is the critical question, and we're not going to allow them to put it off by saying something about Russians or Cubans or any other thing. This is the critical question.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought up Durban, because one of your biggest supporters, Omawale Clay and Viola Plummer, and all of them, they were there. We even had representatives from Operation Power. Joy Simmons, she went to Durban. 121 countries signed on to the document and made the transatlantic slave trade a crime against humanity, which means retroactively, now you can get your reparations. So it is a critical conference, and I'm so glad that you are focusing on that. And your focus on power is critical. And the places that we visit, even in the electoral arena, we were able to go to Cuba. And we went before, and Chairman, this was something. We spoke before the International Medical School, you know, where they have students from all over. And lo and behold, 2 students got up and said, Councilman Barron, they were from East New York, getting a free education, a free medical education, tuition free in Cuba. And we went to the Gaza Strip with Cynthia McKinney and Matulu from the Dead Press to deliver stuff. We went to Venezuela and met with Hugo Chavez's folk as elected officials, went to Zimbabwe as elected officials. And so we want to bring that force right into the Uhuru movement and Black is Back Coalition, the African People's Socialist Party, to really struggle around the question of power. Because as the chairman says, that's the great equalizer. We got about 5 minutes left to go for it.
just want to, I can't overstate my appreciation, first of all, for what you do all the time. And this event that we are conducting right now is not a little thing, because we're engaged in a war of ideas. We really are engaged in, and it's a critical moment in this struggle around ideas and how the world is perceived and how we analyze what's going on. So I think this is really important. So I want to just express appreciation for that, and to also let you know that we won a really important victory. As you know, in St. Louis, they denied us the right for a year to be able to open up a bakery in what they characterize as a food desert. And so this bakery is going to be formally, have a grand opening formally on August 15th, and the 139th anniversary of the birth of Marcus Garvey. We'll be opening it, and people are going to be here from everywhere. And I just wanted to say that and ask people, if you will, go to African People's Socialist Party, or APSPUhuru.org, APSPUhuru.org. Go to the Hands Off Uhuru .org and get more information around these issues and struggles that we're dealing with, because they're critical issues. And as much as they've tried to do it, what they've done is really push the situation where the question of African liberation is now revealing itself again to be the critical question that's fundamental to the liberation not only of African people, but to all of the workers and oppressed peoples of the world. So thank you, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru, but thank you, comrade. Both of us have been to St. Louis. I've been to St. Petersburg. I've seen the concrete institutions that are being built. It will blow your mind. They have stuff in Oakland. They have stuff in St. Louis. I've been to the furniture store that they had in Philadelphia. And so not too often do revolutionaries have an opportunity to have some economic sustenance, because that's always the biggest challenge. But they have been able to do that. So we just so honored. Every time you come on, it is a blessing for our people. Yes, I said blessing. I'm still trying to get you to heaven. Chairman, don't even try. Don't mess around. I'm trying to get you to heaven.
If you go, I'm going. If you're going, I'm going.
I gotta say this, and you always talk about her all the time. Your Ona and the work that she's doing with the stuff. So just give us a little bit on that, because she's incredible. Just like Inez, she reminds me so much of Inez.
My sister's a hard worker. That sister's behind the scenes often, but she's doing so much. And you spoke about how, you can send her as the vanguard to go and to do the work and to scope out what it is and to find out all the regulations, knowing that she's going to be thorough in that. But, we love you. We love her. And we just want to make sure that we express that to both of you and all the other support people, but particularly Sister Ona, particularly her, but all the people in the organization.
Thank you. Yeah, comrade Sister Ona. I was at the gym this morning, and the sister asked me, "Where's your wife?" And she was working. She's working. That's where she is. She's working on these programs and stuff like that. So yeah, we just have to be relentless. We have to be relentless, and nothing else. We can outwork them. We can outwork the oppressors, and that's part of what it is that we're about. So we are relentless, and we say vanguard up, relentless. So thank you so much. Thank you.
And we want to thank all of our viewers, and make sure you support Black Power Media. Subscribe, send donations, listen to all the programs, tell other people about it. We got to push and build Black Power Media. Brother Kalonji Changa is doing a great job, and all of his supporters. So make sure you push us. And as we say each and every week, the truth shall set you free, and power is the great equalizer. Black power.
Black power.